Do you think the government does a better job with your Social Security taxes than what you could do? What would it look like if you had a choice? Today, I want to discuss one of the biggest sacred cows that many people are seemingly married to, and that's Social Security. The biggest problem I have with Social Security isn't the idea behind it, but rather it's the fact that it's something I can't opt out of. It's mandatory. But what if you did have a choice? What if you opted for guaranteed assets that ensured that you would have the money there when you needed it and created your own personal level of security? What if instead of the government determining your future benefit amount, you were in control? What would that mean to you? Today, let's explore what you could do if you could keep that 7.65% of your income and put it to use the way you see fit. How would you fare in your passive income years? Would you be better off? What would a comparison look like? Hello again, it's Rob from Perfect Spiral Capital. Today, let's take a closer look and dig in and see what things might look like between Social Security and if you use that same amount of money into assets that you own and control. To start, let's look at Social Security. First of all, it is a tax. 7.65% of your income is removed from your pay by your employer and it's sent in to the IRS. Now, in addition to that, your employer will also have to pay and contribute as well through their FICA match that they're required to do and send that in as well. Once your money's at the IRS, the Congress determines how much of your money you should receive back, and they also determine the rules and how much they'll let you draw on as early as age 67, or you can wait and allow it to grow to a slightly higher amount. There's always two aspects to any act or any law, and that's what it was intended to do, and then the other part is how it actually works. And how it actually works is how it actually works. It doesn't matter what the intent is, that's how it actually is working in the real world. So it's critical to understand what Social Security was supposed to do, which was to help supplement retirement. But in reality, what it was actually intended for was to help move older people out of the workforce and give younger folks a chance to get jobs. And that was its true intent behind its secondary purpose, which was a wealth redistribution system, meaning that someone pays in money in the form of a tax and it gets distributed by a central authority to other people. What this significant piece of legislation really has done, however, is really cause people to become reliant on the government, especially in their passive income years, versus taking action on their own and saving appropriately. We can certainly see some of that evident today. In the average 55 to 64-year-old, their retirement savings is around $185,000. Now, when you consider that the target amount for most people should be probably over or around $1 million to help last them out to average life expectancy of age 85, we can clearly see there's a gap there. Another thing that's massively contributing to that gap is the savings rate, including retirement and retirement funds, is a paltry 4.6%. Again, the reason that this stuff is happening is because people feel they have this safety net, so they don't have to do as much as they should. And that's really what Social Security has helped that type of behavior to get reinforced. Now, I don't want to sit here and just bash on Social Security. There's a lot of people that rely on it, and I'm not degrading anyone or wanting anybody to feel bad if they're taking it. That's certainly not the point. My point is to really help people to think a little bit differently, in that if you had things in your control, things may turn out and even look better for you over the course of time, or perhaps at a minimum, you think a little bit differently about it. So let's dig into some examples. In our case today, we're going to assume that you earn $56,000 per year annually, the average American's earnings, from age 25 all the way to age 70. Now, I know that's not necessarily how things work in the real world, but I want to try to keep this as simple as we can to help it make the most amount of sense for you. If a person could or did do that, their monthly Social Security benefit would be about $4,400 per year. Not too bad, really. It's only about $3,000 less than what they were earning while they were working. I use the Social Security website to get that information, which you can see here on the screen, so you can go there and look for yourself. Just know that you have to enter in the proper amounts for every one of the 45 years that we have in scope for our example. Now, let's discuss what the alternative might look like. Obviously, many people feel that Social Security feels or seems like it's guaranteed, right? It's just the reality in our world. And they pay in and they're counting on that money to be there over the course of their lifetime. A lot of times they feel very entitled to that money. And quite frankly, I get it. We should feel that way. It's our money that we did pay in, and we should be able to get some of that or all of that back. However, what we have to remember is it is a tax. And once that money leaves our hands, we have zero control over it again. And that is how the tax system works. It goes into the central government and they make a determination on where that money's going to go, how it gets appropriated, who gets it, and what percentage of increase might happen year over year, what have you. Again, I don't want to get too bogged down in that. I want us to focus on some of these examples here. When we think about an alternative in this case, we need to take a safe approach to ensure that we at least have something to count on in passive income years. So that being said, I pulled together a view using some tried and true assets that have guaranteed types of results and or guarantees built into them. And I used a split strategy with a fixed rate deferred annuity and dividend paying whole life insurance through a mutual provider. These two asset classes are extremely reliable and have extremely long track records with very, very consistent performance. In the case of whole life insurance, we have, in some cases, an over 150-year track record of guaranteed growth and dividend payments. The dividends, of course, are not guaranteed, but in many cases, they've been paid out from a lot of companies for at least 120 plus years. So using these two asset classes, I used the 7.65% tax of the $56,000 in which you earned, which is $4,284 per year, and I split it accordingly of 65% to the dividend paying whole life insurance through a mutual provider and the remaining 35% to a deferred fixed annuity. It's important to note in this video that I'm not providing financial advice. It's more so to bring to the light the fact that you could very safely take over the Social Security gap or function in your life if you had the option. So I'm not telling you you should go out and do this. It's simply just bringing it to light. Another important aspect that I want to call out before we get into the specifics of these examples is that I'm not structuring the whole life contract like perhaps I would for the implementation of the infinite banking concept. However, those same attributes really are at play within this whole life contract. It's more so that the cash values are simply going to accumulate at a little slower rate than what they would if we were structuring for the purposes of infinite banking. I'm also putting the assumption of a life expectancy, and I think I mentioned this already, but in that case, the life expectancy here in both cases is age 85. So on to our examples. I'd like to draw your attention to the two middle columns. Here's a comparison between the two. And we can see the same amounts of salary are made, the same monthly contributions, which totaled up to nearly $193,000 over the 45 years. On the left side, you'll see Social Security, and on the right, a dividend-paying whole life and annuity strategy. We're going to call that the ownership strategy. On the far right, we will see the difference between the two. And you'll notice here that in general, they're fairly close, with the ownership strategy actually producing about $2,000 more annually than the Social Security strategy. You would probably say, well, I guess Social Security is pretty good then, right? Remember, though, that there's the seen and the unseen. The unseen here, though, is in one case you have zero control, Social Security, and on the other side, you have complete control. Adding more to that unseen part is that there's more than just the income. In the ownership strategy, the total asset values are worth over $646,000 at age 70. Additionally, at age 85, even after much of the values have been drawn down, there will still be nearly $263,000 in death benefit that will pass on tax-free to your next generations. And speaking of the tax front, the majority of income, so to speak, is not taxable either in the ownership strategy. With Social Security, you have no wealth accumulated to call your own. It's all in the government's coffers. Taxes are still going to be required on much of that income that you receive, and there's zero death benefit to be able to pass on to your next generations. You might be asking yourself, well, what's the point? Because why are you even bringing it up? We know we can't opt out of the one. Again, I get that. The most important part I can say is that your money is best at use under your control. You're led to believe that Social Security is good for you and that it's okay for the government to take 7.65% of your income and offer you a little bit of it in return and give the rest of your earnings to other people. You are also led to believe that safety only comes from the government when in fact it's just not true. The strategy I'm proposing here is not a pipe dream. It's very conservative and has tons of guarantees built into the contracts. It's something that anyone could theoretically go do in addition to their Social Security if they really wanted to. I'm not advocating, though, that someone rush out and do this exact thing. It's more so simply to help you think differently. It's to help people understand that there are alternatives out there that could provide real lasting benefits, not only for them, but even in the cases of their future generations. I hope this video was valuable for you today. I hope that it helped you to think a little bit differently. Let me know what you think in the comments. In any case, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for your time and have a wonderful day.